My sharing will revolve around four things, namely macroeconomics and business cycles, analysis of aggregate demand and aggregate supply, tariffs and trade wars, and the implications of behavioral economics for organizational decision making. The discussion on these four things is conducive to our comprehensive understanding of the impact of the external environment on organizational strategy. First of all, the three most crucial indicators in macroeconomics are the gross domestic product, the inflation rate, and the unemployment rate. Among them, the gross domestic product, or GDP for short, represents the market value of all goods and services created by a country within a certain period. The inflation rate reflects the overall change in the price level. The unemployment rate reflects the health of the labor market. It is related to consumers' purchasing power and confidence in consumption, as well as the level of market activity. These three indicators jointly outline the cyclical changes of the economy. That is, the business cycle, which encompasses the cycle of economic expansion, peaks, recessions, and recoveries. Therefore, the purpose of understanding the business cycle from an economic perspective is to provide a basis for organizations in making different decisions. The second topic I'm discussing is the analysis of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. The Singaporean government plans to offer tax refunds to all tax residents by 2025. This policy means that residents' disposable income will increase. According to the aggregate demand and aggregate supply model, this policy will boost consumption growth in the short term, shift the aggregate demand curve to the right, and thereby drive up economic output. However, an increase in consumer spending may lead to a slight inflation, but it will also stimulate business sales and investment. However, in the long term, the effective will depend on the capacity response of enterprises. If enterprises can expand production and improve efficiency in a timely manner, the aggregate supply curve will shift to the right and the economy will stabilize at a higher output level. However, if production capacity is restricted and production efficiency fails to improve, the overly rapid growth in demand may translate into sustained price hikes. For our company, this policy is both an opportunity and a reminder. We need to make preparations in advance for production capacity and supply chain to deal with possible market expansion. The third topic I discussed was tariffs and trade wars. Since Trump took office, the imposition of tariffs on imported products will lead to a reduction in competitive pressure on domestic manufacturers in the United States, while the profit margins of import enterprises will be squeezed. The beneficiaries are local manufacturing enterprises in the United States, while the losers are consumer and overseas suppliers. Such trade barriers are affecting prices and sales and may undermine the stability of the global supply chain. In international trade, to minimize the impact of trade barriers formed by tariffs on our business as much as possible, we can establish a more resilient cross-border operation structure to share the risks brought by tariffs by diversifying supply sources such as entering more markets and strengthening collaboration with local partners. Finally, the fourth topic I discussed was behavioral economics. All along, economics has assumed that people are rational decision makers. However, from the perspective of behavioral economics, to a large extent, individual behavior is influenced by irrational factors, including emotional and cognitive barriers. Understanding an individual's irrational behavior is conducive to building us to make more informed business decisions. For instance, when we launch a new product, we can first set a relatively high price and then offer a limited time discount. This will make consumers perceive that if they do not purchase the product within the specified time, they may lose such a discount. One important reason is that in marketing, emphasizing that missing out on offers may cause losses to consumers is usually more effective in stimulating their purchasing desire than highlighting the benefits of buying. Overall, the above-mentioned things indicate the impact of macroeconomics, including factors such as market indicators and policy changes on individual macro behaviors. It can be seen that economics can help us gain insight into market changes while predicting and identifying the potential decision-making and behavioral tendencies of our target audience, which serves as the basis for us to optimize decision-making and communication time.